Kennedy and Johnson era, I learned that life back then was really fun and prosperous, and especially after the World War II and during the Cold War, life was getting better due to more technologies. A lot of more freedom was there for a lot of people, and then women tend to go more to the fashion era. I expected to hear similar prospects from my subject interview, who is Mrs. Jody Rosenberg, who is also my piano teacher. And I hope to learn more in detail about what I studied. Can you describe your life during the 1960s? How old were you?
I was born in 1938, so in 1960 that made me 22?
Yeah, 22.
Okay.
Where did you live? Where was your community? What was your home like? Who did you live with?
Okay, by that time I was married.
Oh.
And my husband was working on a graduate degree at the University of Wisconsin. And so we lived in married student housing. And it was very sparse. One big room was the living room and the kitchen. And the kitchen was just one wall of very small appliances. And then there were 2 bedrooms, tiny bedrooms. And the color was very ugly gray. And so I begged the housing authorities to paint it kind of a pretty gold.
Did they agree?
Yes.
Okay, good.
As long as if when we moved we painted back to ugly gray.
That's interesting. Did you have any children?
Yes, I did. I had a child who was at that time, when we moved in, a year and maybe 3 months. And then while we were living there, that was a girl. And then while we were living there, I had a boy.
How nice. What type of area did you study in? Or were you in a job at that time?
Well, at that time, women didn't work outside the home as much as they do now. So my first job was being a high school English teacher. But then I got pregnant with my first child, and they had a rule that once you began to show a little, you couldn't teach anymore.
Why is that?
I don't know. That was their rule. It seems to me kind of antiquated. And it certainly is not true now when you think of all of the people on TV, the anchor people on TV. But that was the rule. And so then I went to piano teaching. But my piano, this piano, was at my parents' house. And so I'd have to go over to my parents' house and teach. And then when we moved to student housing in 61 or 2, I put up a sign in the local market and said that I would be willing to teach at a student's home. And I got so many responses, more than I could handle. So my husband planned all of his classes in the morning so that he could come home by 4 o'clock and that I could go out and teach.
So what was the fashion trend? Did you wear the stereotypical clothes?
The fashion trend was traditional, preppy, where you wear a white collar and a cashmere sweater and a wool skirt and knee socks to here and loafers. But I was a little bit of a beatnik. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Individuals.
And I wanted the look of the beatniks who had black tights, but I couldn't afford black tights. So I went to the old ladies department in the main store in Milwaukee is where this took place. And I got 2 pair of old ladies' black stockings so that if I wore 2 pair at once, it looked pretty dark. So.
That's nice. So during the summer or on the weekends, what would you usually do for fun?
Oh, the thing that comes to mind is parties. Little dinner parties with people, because since we were in student housing, babysitting was a problem. And there would be 4 families in a unit, 2 up and 2 down. And we'd all get together and pool our food and pool our children.
So, what was the music like in the 1960s? Who were the most popular artists? Do you still listen to them?
Nat King Cole, Andy Williams. Those are the 2 that come to mind. No, I don't listen to them.
Okay, I would like to ask you about a few national events which affected your life. Now, I would just like you to recall and tell me what you remember and how these things affected your life. Election of the 1960.
Well, that was Kennedy.
Yes.
And that was the first election that I could vote.
Yes.
So we watched it every night, watched the TV coverage, and voted for him, and were devastated when he was assassinated.
Could you tell me a bit about his assassination?
I think it was on Thanksgiving, or the day before Thanksgiving, and I was hosting my family in this teeny tiny apartment that we were living in. And so I remember having the TV on the whole time and following the events and being very impressed with how solemn and tasteful it was.
Bay of Pigs.
Oh, Bay of Pigs. That's a tough one. I don't think that affected me directly. What happened was Fidel Castro came into power in Cuba, and Cuba is only 90 miles from the United States. And there were ex-Cubans who had moved to the United States and wanted to live in the United States. And there were rebels in Cuba who wanted to get these people back. And that was the Bay of Pigs invasion, and it was a disaster.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
That had to do with Russia. Russia was back in Cuba, and so for a long time it was a missile crisis. Who had more? Who had missiles that could travel farther?
Okay. How about the building of the Berlin Wall?
The Russians built the Berlin Wall to keep the East Berliners out. And it was very sad because families were broken apart and people did very dangerous things in trying to get over the wall and escape to freedom.
How about the first American in space, Alan Shepard, in 1961?
I think he said something very memorable, but I'm not going to say it exact. A step for man, a step for all mankind. It was new, it was brand new. There had been no space travel before then. And Russia was always on our heels. They were very competitive with.
So how did you feel when you first heard about this?
Oh, national pride.
Okay. Well, on to better topics. What was the most popular sports at that time? Did you have a favorite sports hero?
Baseball was very popular, and my team was the Milwaukee, they've changed their name so many times, but I think then they were the Milwaukee Braves, and Eddie Matthews was my hero.
Okay. What is the one change that is most significant to you from the 1960s to now?
Oh, the computer. Everyone's going to answer that.
Oh, I bet. Well, what would be an ideal vacation spot for you and your family during the summer?
During the summer, oh. Well, I'd love to go back to India.
Okay.
I was there once in the winter for 6 weeks. I'd like to go back
Okay.
in the summer.
Did you have a car? Do you remember the model? Where would you usually take the car?
I had, when I graduated from college, a blue Ford, a brand new blue Ford. And then 2 years later, my husband and my little girl and I went to Europe for the summer. So what we did was we put the blue Ford up for sale, and we bought a Volkswagen at the factory in Germany and used the Volkswagen to go all over Europe. And then when we came back to the States, it was our car.
Oh, nice. What was a typical family dinner at your house?
Oh, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, peas, a salad of greens and tomatoes.
Did you usually dress up before your husband came back home from work?
No. No.
Okay. Well, that was fun. I learned things that I did not expect, and it was quite fun. So I did get clarifications about the dressing trend, and I did learn a bit about the Cuban Missile Wars and the Bay of Pigs, and of course the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I really enjoyed doing this interview because I got a more detailed answer, and I just got like an in-view to a personal history.